affiliates. Visit grnonline.com/. Thanks for listening to KATH 910 AM, Frisco, Dallas, Fort Worth, and North Texas on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Catholic radio for your soul. Heard also at grnonline.com and on your smartphone.
Welcome to The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Join us as we journey together on this pilgrimage of faith. And now your host, Sarah Soto.
Hey y'all, it's good to be back with you on this beautiful Monday afternoon. I say
beautiful. It's still real hot. It's still real hot in Texas. But they did fake us out. It was in the low 70s for like 5 minutes. So I'm banking on that. I'm carrying that with me in my heart. I'm a Catholic wife, mom, and speaker. For more information, you can always shoot us a message. Send us any questions, comments, all your thumbs up at thequest@grnonline.com. Hey, we had a share-a-thon last week, didn't we, Matt?
Yes, we sure did. And thanks to the generosity of our listeners, we reached our goal. Thanks be to God. So thank you so much to GRN supporters and listeners of The Quest, because we are fully funded until we start knocking on your door again in the winter.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. Our listeners are the best. They're better than all the other listeners.
They are simply the best, better than all the rest. And,
okay, Tina Turner.
You got it, Dave. There's no penalty for going over. So if you're still interested in giving, we could use your support. So just go to grnonline.com. I've done a lot of work with the Guadalupe app recently because we had some problems with the app, and you can now donate safe and secure right through the app, which is kind of cool. I think donate at a heart or some sort of icon next to that. And the thing that I fixed was we had, you could go into the app, you could listen to the show, but then if you got a phone call or you opened up a YouTube video, you'd have to restart the app to play it. So we fixed that. And
nice.
It's working now.
Look at us go.
Pretty slick. So so your financial support helps us fix things like that.
Yeah, that's a good thing to be fixed.
So pray for us, and if you were thinking about donating last week and didn't have a chance, please do that right now. We appreciate it.
No penalty for going over. So they can, if they don't have the GRN app, they can just go to our website, grnonline.com to donate.
grnonline.com to donate. Yep.
We appreciate it. Especially today's show gets you as riled up as it's riled me up. But I will say this: you said there's no penalty for going over. Can you imagine if our Lord was like, if you do too many corporal works of mercy, you're gonna, it's like my good friend who's been on the show before, Deacon Bernie, said, don't shoot for purgatory, because if you miss, it's not going to be a good time. Shoot for heaven. But our Lord never said, don't do too many good things. Don't do too many kind of things. So please, if you didn't get a chance to donate and you still want to, please visit grnonline.com to donate, to help us fix the things that need to be fixed and give you better Catholic radio. So I told you, Matt, recently that after having said I think it was last year? No, a couple of years ago, I said to my husband, I am never going to work at a parish again. So I said those words to him, which I have now baked nicely into humble pie, and am currently teaching not at one parish, but at two. I'm teaching at two parishes here in our diocese, and teaching 2 confirmation classes, and I'm running a youth group this go around here. I tell you, it's teens are built differently than we were. I don't think we're exactly the same age, but somewhere in the vicinity, somewhere in the ballpark. And I was just trying to explain to my teens the content for a story that I was telling them, the contents that were in my purse when I was 17 years old. And I was like, now, there was a phone inside of it, but I don't know if you, I told them, I was like, kids, I don't know if you've ever, so the phone flips open. So like you can slam it shut, but it has a hinge. You guys know what a hinge is? And they're like, and they were just teasing me. They knew what a flip phone was, but it's just, I was thinking about, when we were in class and there's no, like you have to look at people and be like, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? I like your shoes. And now, so like in the beginning of confirmation class, those first initial like sessions where kind of kids are kind of like, filing in. Every single
child, and I mean, I know you know,
all our listeners know.
Every single teen is buried scrolling on their phone. And so there's none of that like kind of pre-game, pre-class, getting to know each other. Hey, what school do you go to? And hey, was that your Forerunner out there? Man, I love those vintage Forerunners. Like there's zero of that. And it was different for us. We got to make friends the old-fashioned way and interact with each other. And you are a parent to some kids much older than my kid. What do you think about your teen years? Well, if you could kind of look at your teen years and their teen years.
I didn't even have a flip phone in my teen years because we didn't have cell phones yet. That's how ancient I am. But one of the things I wanted to, we can talk about my kids' experience if you want for this, but I'm curious. So I live in a diocese where they have what's called the Restored Order of the Sacraments. And that is they receive, they have their first confession, then they have First Holy Communion, and then they receive confirmation all at the same Mass. First confession is not at the same Mass. That's right. Earlier. Before. But First Holy Communion and confirmation is at the same age at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that is not how I had it. I had sort of like the classic, I don't know how old I was when I was confirmed.
Well, the classic way, my grandmother, she was confirmed at her baptism.
Yeah, so that's an even more...
It's very
restored
classic.
Order.
Yeah.
But what's the age group of the kids that you're working with?
So our teens in our diocese receive confirmation, the sacrament of confirmation at 16.
Okay.
Ish, give or take, right? Some of them register a little later. I was confirmed at my First Holy Communion Mass when I was 7.
Okay.
So yes, I'm on that same page. That is such a... So a priest friend of mine and I were arguing for the restoration of confirmation at baptism. And I can see the two sides of it because I understand if you get confirmed at your baptism, then there's no quote-unquote reason to keep coming back to the parish and, take classes. And I just want to give everybody a little bit of like a heads up, kind of a newsflash here. You don't have to be enrolled in a class to go hang out and do stuff at your parish. You can just do it because it's good. It's a good thing to do and to be involved with. But but on the other end, on the sacramental end, which is the end I'm looking at it from, how can you live out the grace of your baptism if you don't have the gifts of the Holy Spirit? How do we expect our kids to navigate, right, all the challenges, the insane challenges that they face in today's world without, I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't think one way or the other is wrong. Right. I think it would be really cool to have my son confirmed at his baptism, but because we certainly need those gifts. But yeah, the teen experience now, just in general, outside even sacrament prep, is wildly different from 15 years ago, which is, I don't know that it's ever been as drastically different from teenage experiences from 15 years. I mean, maybe, right, like with the invention of the internet, it's just like exponentially more scary out there. Yes. But yeah, it's a big task ahead of me. I guess I could just say that.
So I have an unusual side note. So I think that the majority of my age group at my parish were going to getting confirmed at 16. I had a desire to become confirmed earlier. So we lived next to a Navy air base. So we went over to the church there, and I got confirmed a year earlier than my peers because that was something that I just really, really wanted to do. So my confirmation is with the Archdiocese of the Armed Forces, as opposed to the Diocese of Portland, where I lived at the time and do again now.
Can I just say that that's very punk rock?
That is very punk rock.
Wanting to be confirmed before all your peers. That's that's actually really cool.
I got to meet a bunch of girls that I didn't really know because they weren't at my parish. So
that's the real
that
punk
was cool
rock.
for a 15-year-old of me.
Yes. Yeah, that's really cool. That's I love hearing about all the different stories of sacrament prep or being confirmed as a baby, and I'm extremely passionate about teaching, and I really. People look at me like I have two heads when I say this, but I really love serving teens. I really, really like working with teens. People are like, "Are you out of your mind?" Teens are. I mean, these are not my words because I would never say something like this. But people have said to me like, "Teens are awful. Like they're so terrible to be around, so terrible to work with. Like, how can you tolerate them?" And it's very sad to me because I think that what's implied there is that a lot of people's expectations of teens are very, very low. And so they rise to the lowest possible expectation. And that has not been my experience. That has been my experience working with teens. I have been wowed at their openness, their responsiveness, and their desire for truth and the questions that they come up with. But what I have found is that many people involved in catechetical work will become a bit frustrated when teens ask challenging questions, but I love a good challenging question. So it's the right ministry for me, and I'm excited to share all about all the different challenges that teens are facing today and the questions that they have and what it means to properly form teenagers in today's day and age into our beautiful Catholic faith. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dave Palmer. Do you love all that you're learning about the Catholic Church here on the GRN? And are you ready to dive into the deep? If so, join us each Friday afternoon beginning at 1 p.m. Central for Back to the Father on the GRN's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages as we discuss key teachings of St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologia and their application to our everyday journey through this life and our goal of returning back to the Father. Each Friday at 1 p.m. Central, email backtothefather@grnonline.com for more information.
Do you long to hear God's voice? Lord, teach me to pray. The free Ignatian prayer series will open your heart to His voice, to the peace you are seeking, and the only love that fulfills the human heart, Jesus. God is calling you to true joy, knowing Jesus personally. Lord, Teach Me to Pray is free. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com. Click on the red box. Order Lord Teach Me to Pray now. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com.
Welcome back to The Quest, an extraordinary journey where every step brings us closer to discovering God's love for us. Want to join the conversation? Give us a call at 877-757-9424.
Hey y'all, welcome back. It's so good to be with you. I'm your Thursday host of The Quest, Sarah Soto. You can listen to us on grnonline.com, on Facebook, on YouTube. You can even stream it from your newly updated and even more efficient GRN app. We're on live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm with you Mondays and Thursdays. Monsignor Charles Pope, the one and only, is on Tuesdays and Fridays, and Mr. Steve Gleason is with you on Wednesdays. And it's such a joy to be with you all. I'm going to share a little bit about my experience today working with young people. I think I'm sure of it because I've seen a lot of it. There are a lot of influencers and content creators and ministries and really, amazing Catholic organizations and companies that put together fantastic content for the purpose of forming young people, right, in the sacrament of confirmation and in youth ministry and all kinds of stuff. But I think the trouble there sometimes can be that effective ministry I have found in my experience doesn't always it doesn't always work for every group if you're essentially pulling it out of a box, ministry in a box, if you will, because every diocese is unique, every demographic is unique, and every parish is unique. I mean, you've got parishes with tons and tons of resources, and you've got parishes where you got like one catechist doing everything and the priest, trying to keep his head above water. And then you got other parishes with these incredible atriums, right? Like with all these levels of catechesis of the Good Shepherd, and there's endless volunteers and all these great coffee and donut things after Mass. And so there's such a wide, right? The Catholic Church is universal because we are a universal church. We serve a universal population. Sometimes you can't order, a confirmation preparation course online and properly form everybody that's in your class. And so what I mean by that is, so if you're just now tuning in, I shared with our producer Matt that I just started teaching essentially 3 confirmation classes. After saying I would never work at a parish again. It's just not really I just really feel, the last time I did it, and I'll share why I said that I'll never work at a parish again. I love doing Catholic radio. I love doing, going on podcasts and giving talks at retreats and parishes and conferences and things like that. I really love, speaking it's my jam. I really, really like going in and getting out. But to journey, with someone, through a couple of years, especially a young person, comes with quite a few challenges. And I have found that a lot of those challenges come from sometimes from parents, sometimes from conflicting extracurricular schedules. And I can't tell you the battles that I have fought with, and it's almost never with the teens. It's almost never with the teens, with parents, with coaches, with teachers saying, you absolutely can't miss practice. You can't miss 15 minutes of practice. And it blows my mind. It shouldn't though, right? The opposition to the sacraments, the opposition to grace. And I understand that the evil one doesn't want teenagers to be properly formed. He doesn't want them to receive the grace of the sacrament of confirmation. And that's bad for him, right? It's like, because it's such a powerful and beautiful sacrament, there are a lot of forces of evil that are against teenagers being confirmed in the Holy Spirit, being given the gift of the Holy Spirit. And all these obstacles that are faced, I didn't get roped in. I willingly and happily said yes to help at a few parishes here in my diocese because there's a need. There's a need, and I'm going to tell a quick story, and I'm going to keep the players in it anonymous. So I have a good friend who's only been ordained a priest for about a year, a little over a year, and he was in town. We went to the Mass that he celebrated. And the permanent deacon, one of the permanent deacons, came up and gave an announcement right before the final blessing. I said, we really, really need catechists. We have the same few people doing everything here at our parish, and we are desperate for help. We really, really need help. So if you think that you might, be interested in doing it, even if you are just open to it, come talk to me because we really need catechists. And then he said, and I'm going to give a direct quote here. He said, if you can talk, if you can stand, we want your help. And so now, I try really hard not to make eye contact with my priest friends when they're celebrating Mass. Like, I actively avoid it because I've just got one of those faces. I got a face only a mother could love. Like we make eye contact, and then it's like, then there's like a little bit of a smirk, and then it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be serious in this moment. So I try really hard, but at the exact moment that the deacon said, if you can talk, and if you can stand, we want your help. The priest, my friend, and I, he opened our eyes. We both had closed eyes. We both opened our eyes from across this big church, and we locked eyes with each other, and we immediately shifted away, because what do you mean? Like you want like a scarecrow? You could prop up a scarecrow to teach this class? I don't want just anybody teaching this class. What are you talking about? And look, I get it. We really are shorthanded in the church. Like, we really need help. There's a ton of work to do. There's not a lot of people, not just willing to do it, but there are certainly not a lot of people that are qualified to do it or formed to do it. I mean, that's the thing, is that you don't want the person teaching your child's class to be giving their opinion. You want them to teach what the church teaches. Well, I'm sorry to say, I haven't encountered a whole lot of people that are properly educated and informed on what the church actually teaches. I get a lot of, well, my Jesus would never do that. My Jesus would be fine with that. That's love right there. My Jesus would be A-okay with that. Well, heavens to Betsy, what about the biblical Jesus? What about the actual Jesus? What would he say? Because I don't think he would be for that, ma'am. I don't think he would be for that at all. And so if we're just looking for someone who could be propped up like a scarecrow to teach a class, we are desperate. And so, that being said, I have enough of a qualification to teach confirmation, and there was a need at a couple parishes, and so I am willingly giving up some of the most precious time that I have with my little family to go and teach other people's kids and help form other people's kids. And this is not the first time I've done this, right? And so I have some experience. I have a decent amount of experience, I would say, teaching and forming young people. But talking about what young people are navigating and what they're confused with and what they're searching for is something that I like to do every now and then when I have the platform to do so. And it gives me the opportunity to remind parents, to remind grandparents, to remind all of our wonderful, generous listeners here on the Guadalupe Radio Network that mom and dad, not Miss Sarah, the catechist at your local parish, but mom and dad are the primary educators and formators of their child. It does not depend on me. Your child's salvation doesn't depend on me. It depends on you. And so if your child is someone that you don't even really like to be around, that doesn't know anything about the faith, that can't answer basic questions about what the church teaches, that is actually not on their CCD teacher. It's actually not even on their pastor. It's not on the priest. It's on you. You are the one. Okay? Parents are the primary formators and educators of their children. There will be other formators, right? Like their catechists, their pastor, obviously, their shepherd. But it's on parents. So if your child, again, doesn't know how to defend the faith, then it's because you didn't teach them. I had a meeting with the pastor of one of the parishes that I'm working with, and I said, what's your vision? Like, what do you envision for confirmation, aside, obviously, like being properly formed, right, and prepared to receive the sacrament of confirmation? I said, what do you want for these kids to, like, what's the ideal for you? I asked him, and he said, I want these teens to go through sacrament preparation, receive the sacrament of confirmation, go on to graduate high school, and whatever they do in life, whether that's go to college, whether that's go to, tech school, or whether it's go and get married and enter religious life, he's like, no matter what it is that they go do, I want them to be able to stand firm and defend their faith when the time eventually comes, because it eventually does, where their faith will be challenged, right? Whether that's by classmates or a professor or someone that they're dating or a coworker. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten texts from some of the young adults I've worked with when they're like at work saying, hey, my Baptist manager is telling me that I'm going to hell because what do I say to him? And then I call him on speaker and I'm like, hello? This is Miss Sarah. Who's this? But that's just my style. So, I mean, you're not going to get that from a lot of catechists, which is probably a good thing, to be honest with you. Is this Randy? Listen up, buddy. There are so many challenges that young people face. You all know that. I mean, I know that that's not news to you. But I just wanted to have today to share some of the real world experiences I have working with teens and some of the actual things that they say to me, and some of the things that they're really working to navigate through. Some of it's pretty heartbreaking, and I'm going to be real with you. It's a little stressful for me, because I'm like, it can become, if you're like me, I don't know, what is the trendy thing to say? Like an empath or something, right? Like I take it on. I'm like, I can't sleep at night because of like what they tell me that they're going through. And so then I'm like losing sleep because I'm worried that the teens out there are doing all this awful stuff. And so, long story short, my prayer, obviously I have consistent prayers that I pray every single day, but the prayer, aside from like Hail Mary and Our Father, etc., Rosary, things like that, the prayer that I have prayed for the longest amount of time, really since coming back to the faith, and the most consistently, even in like times of spiritual desolation, the most consistent prayer that I have is I ask Our Lady to inspire our young people to return to chastity, modesty, and purity. Our Lady of Fatima said that the sin that sends the most people to hell are sins against chastity. They're sexual sins. And that, my friends, my dear friends, is the most heartbreaking part for me about helping Catholic youth with all of the confusion that they face. So every once in a blue moon, I'll get something that's that deviates from that, right? That deviates from the struggle with impurity, the struggle with immodesty, the struggle with lack of chastity. Like I'll get something that deviates, but the vast majority of issues that our young people are facing are rooted in a lack of chastity. I'll be very honest with you. It consumes, right? And it's really heartbreaking. Every now and then I'll get a kid that'll like submit an anonymous question to me, like slide it across the table, and it's like, how do I know I'm not living in a simulation? Okay, Harold, let's meet after class today. Okay, we can, and so I get a lot of questions, and I'm happy. I always tell my teens there is not a single question that I am going to say, how dare you ask me that kind of question? What do you think this is? That's not my style. I welcome all questions in every fashion, and I don't back away from any, because I want them to know they can get answers and they can ask questions. It's okay. And so when we return, I'll share some of the most frequently asked questions that I get and struggles that teens are facing. And I don't do it to break your heart. I do it so that you're informed, so that you can help Catholic youth navigate through a world of confusion they face. You're listening to Sarah Soto here on The Quest. We'll be right back.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. Efforts to enshrine abortion continue, coming up 3 points short in Florida polling. And election officials there say fraudulent petition signatures may have gotten that measure on the ballot. Police and elections officials are investigating an undisclosed number of reports of possible fraud. Pro-life voters there say the only way their name got on such petitions is by their forged signatures. Court action in Nebraska is allowing 2 initiatives on abortion. The one with the most votes either constitutionally makes permanent a current state abortion ban or allows unlimited abortion. Ballots in at least 10 states feature pro-abortion ballot measures. This is Life News Radio. When officials tally this election, the results matter, but your participation matters more. God will see the souls that respond to the evils of abortion and to a culture of death. When you have a chance to vote, your participation is a moral obligation. History will record your participation, and that is something you can tell to your children and grandchildren. Get informed, think well, and vote for a culture of life. At the beginning of his recent trip, Pope Francis praised Indonesia's president for his nation maintaining a birth rate that sustains a human future. He told President Jokowi Widodo that in other nations, many families prefer to have a cat or a little dog instead of a child. On the Pope's way home, when journalists asked him about U.S. elections, the Holy Father focused on the urgency of voting well. Recent polls show large numbers of potential pro-life voters are not registered, and other polls show the life issue becoming more important to millions in the U.S. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
You're listening to The Quest, a pilgrimage of faith. Have a question or something to share? Call the show live at 877-757-9424.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to The Quest. I'm your Monday, Thursday host, Sarah Soto. We're talking about the difficulties that Catholic youth have to navigate through in this very confusing time, this very confusing world, and a lot of the things that they come to me with and ask me about as a formator of young people, as an educator of young people. And perhaps you'll hear me say, teens ask me this the most, and say, well, obviously. And perhaps you'll say, gosh, that kind of breaks my heart. I have a teenager. I wonder if they're thinking the same thing. Or I have a grandson who's about that age. I wonder if he's thinking that. And so my hope is never to make you feel awful or to make you feel like you fall short, but it is to point you towards the Lord. It's to point you towards a deeper communion with the Most Holy Trinity. And in this case, particularly, deepening your relationship in your communion with the Most Holy Trinity by living out your call to be a good and holy spouse and parent, so that you can raise good and holy children who love the Lord and can defend their faith as they get older and are challenged. So I would say probably and maybe this will surprise you, maybe it won't, of all the years and all the time I've spent working with teens, the most common conundrum or difficulty that they face, that they share with me, which, working with teens for, years, and, you walk with them and you journey with them. It's, they get comfortable with you and they ask you questions and they come to you with things. And so, this is, it probably seems silly to us adults, and maybe adults to some adults, to some grown-ups, this might sound silly, but I'm sure, unfortunately, that many adults listening can probably relate to this difficulty that teens have. So I would say the number one challenge that teens face that they share with me is they feel pressure, immense pressure to have a committed, serious boyfriend or girlfriend. That's probably the number one challenge that they face. And so that has a couple of different ways that it can go. Either they become infatuated with someone, get into a quote-unquote relationship, and I say relationship with a big fat grain of salt, because I get it, Tommy, you want a girlfriend, but you don't have like a 401k, you own no property of any kind, you don't know how to operate a motor vehicle, so I don't really know what you mean by relationship, but a serious committed relationship requires some sort of it should require a license, at least of some kind, but that's neither here nor there. So in these difficulties that kids are facing, they feel pressure. And I think, in my experience, what they've told me is the main reason they feel pressure to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend is because, for whatever reason, they gauge they're not using the word dignity, but they gauge their value and whether or not they are deserving of love based on whether or not someone wants to be in I'm using air quotes here. So if you're watching the video stream, you get to enjoy it. A committed relationship, whether they're in a committed relationship or not. And so if no one wants to be in a committed relationship with them, they have little to no value. Nobody wants them. Nobody loves them. And therefore their social status and their desirability and their what all these other factors that are important they're almost non-existent. And we as Catholics know that that couldn't be further from the truth, and that being in a relationship has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you have inherent dignity because you're made in the image and likeness of God. And so there is a huge disconnect with teens. They, in my experience, like almost with the exception of those who have parents who are actually doing real formation and education with them at home, I would say probably 90% of the teens that I've worked with don't understand the church's teaching on human dignity. They don't know anything about it. Because, well, obviously they don't, right? Because if their understanding of their worth and their value comes from whether or not they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, what does that even mean? What does it even mean to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend when you're 14 years old, when you're 12 years old? I try to stay hip, as I've said to you all before. And there are like so many running jokes about how the relationship that I had, I mean, this is coming from like a 15-year-old, right? The relationship I had in 7th grade is the one that really messed me up forever, messed me up for life. Because kids are telling each other that they love each other. Do you know what 7th graders also love? Pizza buffets. Okay? So if the same mouth is proclaiming, I love pizza buffets, the same mouth is also saying, I love Christy Clark from 7th grade math. There may be, and hear me out here, there may be a lack of understanding of what it means to will the good of another. I'm just saying. If you're saying, I love a pizza buffet, I love a good pizza buffet, and I love Christy Clark, she's my girlfriend, you may not be understanding that love means willing the good of another. I'm just saying. And so I know we're not supposed to say this, but there's a huge difference between girls and boys. As you all know because you're smart. But yeah, these relationships where they're giving of themselves. They're giving of themselves emotionally. They're giving of their time. They're giving of themselves physically. They're giving of themselves sexually at such a young age. I'm saying this to you because I work with teens. I have worked with teens for a long time. I've received countless, like thousands of letters from teens. Or all the talks that I've given, all the work that I've done, openly admitting to me that they're participating in married people activities. Is that what you're supposed to say? When they're like 15, when they're 16, when they're 14. That's the reality. That is the reality. And if we're ignoring it, pretending it's not there, not talking about it because it makes us uncomfortable, I can think of another much hotter place that's far more uncomfortable that we don't want ourselves or especially our children to be in for all eternity. Our Lady herself said that so many people are condemned forever because of their lack of chastity, because of sins of the flesh. There is a better way, people. There is a better way. There's a better way. And that way, of course, first and foremost, is living it out yourself. So if you are young and you're listening, if you are unmarried, the best thing that you can do for your future family, if the Lord is calling you to marriage, the best thing you can do and the best way you can love your teens who haven't even come into existence yet is by properly living out the virtue of chastity in your relationships now, and not giving of yourself, of your body, of your mind and your heart to someone you aren't married to. So that the foundation is laid in your marriage from the get-go, so that you can, because I'll tell you, in my experience working with teens, the most common difficulty that parents have shared with me is how can I tell my teen not to do X, Y, Z when I did it myself? I tried to tell them that this is against what the church teaches, and they threw it in my face that I had lived with someone before I was married, that I had been married multiple times, that I had been, that I had children from a previous relationship, et cetera, whatever it is, right? Even if those things are true, even if you had previously lived, even if you've previously sinned against chastity, right? Even if you have lived previously that way, it's not an excuse to not have to form your children properly. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to stand before your child and say, I did this, and here's the pain that I experienced from it, and here are the consequences that I faced because of it. But if your children are telling me, right, as their catechist, as someone, as a formator, if your children are telling me that they don't feel like they have value unless they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, they don't need me to tell them, no, sweetheart, you have inherent dignity. I'm gonna tell them, obviously. That's my job. That's what I've been asked to do. That's what's true. I'm gonna tell them that they were created in the image and likeness of God, and that no matter what, right, no matter what they look like, no matter how much money they have, I'm gonna tell them how deeply loved they are. I'm gonna tell them about the passion of Jesus and how what he endured and why he endured it, right, out of love for them, out of love for all of us. But it's obviously not the same coming from me as it would be coming from mom or dad. And so, if you have a teen, if you will have a teen soon, or if you have someone who used to be a teen, it's not too late to share with them how deeply loved they are by the Lord and how high of a call he has for them, the call to holiness, the call to sanctity. I would say that it's innumerable the amount of times that teens have told me that all they want in life is a boyfriend, all they want is a girlfriend, so that they can be whatever, right, loved, respected, show it proves that they're desirable. It proves to the world that they're well, they're not saying the word good looking. That's an old person thing like me to say. It proves that they're good looking. It proves that they have the riz, whatever the kids are saying. I don't know what I'm talking about. If that's the marker of value, being in a relationship, and we all know that the likelihood that a relationship that begins in high school is going to work out for the rest of people. It's possible. Certainly it's possible. Let's not ignore that it's a possibility. But the likelihood is not great. It's not high. And so if our teens think that they can only have value if they're in a relationship, perhaps it's time to sit down and talk with your spouse, to talk with who you're, I don't know, the hot word, who you're co-parenting with, to talk to your teens about what expectations are when it comes to dating. Because I can't tell you, I'm rubbing my face, I can't tell you how many times that parents have told me, I don't know, she just came home one day, or he just came home one day and said, I have a girlfriend. I have a boyfriend now. Like, excuse me? What do you mean you have a boyfriend? What do you mean you have a girlfriend? It shouldn't come as a shock if you've literally never had a conversation about dating expectations with your child. Because the pressure, if they're going to school outside your house, whether it's private school or public school or whatever kind of school you go to, there is pressure to date. There's pressure to be in a relationship. And if they find someone that gives them the time of day, they're going to get into a relationship. They need boundaries. They need rules. They want boundaries. They want rules, and not meaningless, trivial rules. They want help. They want your help, and you have to have those difficult conversations. We have to be willing to have those difficult conversations with our children and not ignore them. We're talking about the difficulties that teenagers face in our world today. We got to help our young people return to chastity, return to modesty, and return to purity. We're talking about my work in this difficult ministry. I'm your Monday, Thursday host here on The Quest, Sarah Soto. It's been a minute, but I'm so glad to be here with you all. We're going to share lots more about working with teens and how we can help them through all the many countless challenges they face in our world today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back after a short break.
This is Franciscan Media's Saint of the Day for September 16th. Today we celebrate Saint Cornelius. Persecution of the Church during the 3rd century reached such a peak that there was no pope for 14 months. Today's saint was elected following that interval. The greatest problem of Cornelius's 2-year term as pope had to do with the sacrament of penance. The question centered on the readmission of Christians who had renounced their faith during the time of persecution. Some of the proposed solutions were extreme, including one that came from a priest who had himself consecrated a rival bishop of Rome, the Church's first antipope. This priest denied that the Church had any power to welcome back those who had denied their faith, even those guilty of adultery. Cornelius, however, had the support of most of the Church in condemning such extremes. In 251, he held a synod in Rome and ordered that lapsed Catholics could be restored to the Church with what he called the usual medicines of repentance. Persecutions resumed the following year, and Cornelius was arrested and deported. Though he was a candidate for martyrdom, he more likely died in 253 as a result of the hardships of his exile and imprisonment than by beheading. There's more about the saints along with inspiration and Catholic resources at our website, saintoftheday.org. From Franciscan Media, this has been Saint of the Day.
This is The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Share the show with a friend. You can find us on social media. Want to listen again? We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts.
Hey y'all, welcome back. Listen, shoot us an email at thequest@grnonline.com. Let me know, do you think that hitting your funny bone on some like wooden part of your home is time off purgatory? Let me know. thequest@grnonline.com is hitting your funny bone time off purgatory, because I just did it. And I feel like it's a yes. I feel like it's a resounding yes. At least like a second off purgatory. It's bad. It's bad stuff. Today we're talking about helping teens navigate through the many difficulties and challenges they face in our world today. It's almost like the world is not a loving, open-armed, comfortable, cushy place for Catholics. I don't know. Just a rumor I heard. I'm talking about the common things that I hear teenagers tell me. I hear them with my own ears. I hear them talking to me about the struggles that they face, and we were saying that the number one thing is that they feel pressure to be in a relationship. They feel pressure to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, because for them that is how they indicate or how they know that they are loved, which is obviously a complete and total lie. They are loved without a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They are loved without a job. They are loved without a home. They are loved without a PS5. They are loved without arms or legs. They are loved if they're illiterate. They're loved if they can't speak. They're loved regardless, because we have a very good and loving God. And so certainly having a boyfriend or a girlfriend is not an indicator of whether or not your teenager is loved. But in my experience, I have found that teenagers are basically feeling as if they are valued and they are loved if they have a significant other. Significantly what? Unlicensed to drive a motor vehicle? That's another story for another time. I have to stop saying that. Another struggle, one of the top 3 struggles I have found that teenagers are coming to me with and telling to me that they struggle with is quite a sad one. It's terribly common. And I'm sure it won't surprise you, but I often find that teenagers tell me, they say, I feel terribly lonely. I don't have anybody that I can talk to. I don't feel comfortable talking to my parents about the struggles that I'm having. I can't talk to them about the struggles that I'm having. I want guidance on these things. I have questions that I want answered. I just don't have anybody that I can go to. I feel alone. I feel all by myself trying to navigate these things. I don't feel like I can talk to anybody about this. And so there are probably parents who look at their teenager opening their mouth to speak and they shut them down and call them awful names and physically and emotionally abuse them. I would say that maybe most parents, probably most parents, are not doing that. I'm sure most parents would appreciate if their teenagers came to them and opened up and said things. So where's the discrepancy happening here? If teens aren't comfortable coming to talk to their parents about the challenges they face and the things that are going on, I wonder, but parents really want them to open up. What's the disconnect? Well, I think it's a couple of things. I know that a lot of like kind of fear-based parenting can make the child feel like they can't go to mom or dad when they're struggling with something big out of fear of getting, judged or screamed at, or someone only has to scream at you a certain number of times before you say, you know what, I'm not going to go open up to them anymore because I'm getting screamed at every time I do. And so do we want our children to come to us when they're in trouble? Do we want our kids to come to us when they are facing or they have fallen into a serious sin or temptation? I'm not saying our kids need to go to confession to us, but I'm just saying, do we want our kids to lean on us in times of need? Well, I would think that the answer would be yes. I do think we want, as parents, we want our children to come to us first. We want our children to trust us. And I think it's a more complicated solution than we have time to get into today. I'm hoping to have a guest on in the near future that is a medical doctor who's been working with teens for like 30 years, who has some really amazing research about kids and why they do or don't communicate. So I'll tell you, without spoiling who it is, I was recently reading that she was sharing a story about how she had a young man in her medical practice. And every time she asked the little boy, he's a teenager, a question, dad would say, well, of course not. He's this, and this. And he wouldn't let the son answer. And so finally the doctor spoke up and said, I'm actually asking your son, how does he feel about this, or what are his symptoms, or whatever it is. And how does he feel about this? And the kid said, well, I want to talk to my dad. I just can't because he always, gets after me. And I want the opportunity to, XYZ. And the doctor asked, Dad, how did your father speak to you? And Dad kind of looked inwardly for a moment, and his eyes filled with tears, and he said, well, he was always yelling at me. He never let me get a word in edgewise. And I see that I can see now that that's what I'm doing to my own son, and it hurt me so much. And he apologized to his son, and I hope and I pray, right, there's further reconciliation, continued reconciliation in that relationship. But it's so easy to fall into parenting out of stress and parenting we just want them to fall in line and make it look like they've got it together. And so doing the bare minimum can sometimes, your kids when they're small, you're bigger than them, they're scared of you. And so if we can kind of force them into submission, that's one thing. But getting to build a relationship of trust with them is hard work. It's so hard. It takes all your time. It takes all your energy. But it's what you're called to do. You're called to have a real relationship with your children. You're called to listen to them talk and ask you 50 million questions. You're called to relate to them and to hear them and to not give them a million arbitrary rules. Like we're FaceTiming with my in-laws and my son. There's only one cabinet that's not baby-proofed in our kitchen, and it's all the pots and pans. And he opens it up and he takes all the pots and pans out and he sets them all up and puts these little fridge magnets in there, and that's how we can cook anything. And my mother-in-law said, he's getting into she was like, he's getting into the pans. He's getting into all the pans. And he was like, my husband said, well, yeah, that's what he does. And that's the only way we can get anything done in here. And I think it reminded me of when I was a kid, and it was, sometimes it was the apocalypse because I took some clothes out of a drawer that had been folded already. And the truth is that just because you have to redo the work that you had done previously because your toddler undid it is not justification to become angry. So I don't know who needs to hear that right now, but if that kid keeps getting screamed at and yelled at because you don't want to put in effort to like refold clothes that you already folded, it's not really on a 1-year-old. It's not really on a 2-year-old. It's on you to control your emotions. And so years and years and years of that, I think, create a teenager or form a teenager to know that they can't come to you when stuff is messed up because of how you'll react. And so it takes a long time to get there. It takes a long time to get out of there. And so building trust is how you help the teenager who's telling me, I don't have anybody I can talk to. I don't have anybody I can trust. I feel so alone. I feel like I'm all this stuff's going on at school and my friendships and my relationships, and I don't know who to go to. Well, we want you to go to mom and dad. We don't want you to, you can talk to me, right? Because I'm working at the church, I serve at the church, but you need to talk to mom and dad. And how you do that is by building relationship, and it takes a boatload of work. But the Lord has called you to do that work, the work of helping your children get to heaven. There are so many things that I want to say, and unfortunately I don't have time today to get into all of them, but I will leave you with this. I have teenagers coming to confirmation that tell me they don't understand why they have to go to this class. And confirmation is not a place to go to learn about the Catholic faith from day one. It's the place to come to when you've already been formed and you're ready to be prepared to receive this last sacrament of initiation. So it's on you, parents. It's on you to help your children understand what the virtues are, how to obtain them. It's on you to teach them what the Eucharist is, how important frequent confession is. It's on you to teach them how to be patient and kind and loving and merciful. It's on you. It's not on your catechist. So I challenge you to be more loving with your children, to be more understanding, and to be more patient with them. I'm your host, Sarah Soto. I'm with you Mondays and Thursdays on The Quest. You can tune in every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. As always, thanks for listening, and God bless you.
Your 24-hour